I see we're a little bit off on the wall clock by a minute or so, and I see by the digital clock we're 7 o'clock. So I will call to order the Copper Canyon regular town council meeting for Monday, January 12th, 2026. By the way, Happy New Year to everybody. We're going to start the meeting off with the American flag, pledge the American flag, and pledge the Texas flag. And I'll ask, once we're done, please remain, if you can, please remain seated or standing. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. If you don't mind, we had one of our founding members pass away this last week, Mr. Raymond Finley. He's a signature founder member of Copper Canyon, 1973, so I'd like to have a few seconds of silence for him and his family. Thank you very much. And everybody can be seated as necessary. The first course of action is we're going to be going into executive session for discussions with our town lawyer, section 55.071, consultation with attorney. The town council may conduct a private consultation with its attorney when the town council seeks the advice of its attorney concerning any item on this agenda upon pending or contemplated litigation or a settlement offer or on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the town council under the Texas disciplinary rules and professional conduct of the State Board of Texas clearly conflicts with chapters 551. And this is going to be for seeking the advice of our city attorney regarding cause number 25-11671-413, Timothy Larson and Melissa Larson versus Town of Copper Canyon, Texas et al. And we're going to enter executive session at 7:02.
And I will close the executive session at 7:20 p.m. Next item on the agenda is public input. Citizens can make comments to town council during this session of the section of the meeting. We ask citizens who wish to speak on the agenda items to sign in on a sheet provided on the table at the back of the council chambers. There's a 3-minute time limit for each speaker. Pursuant to state open meetings law, the town council cannot take action on items not posted on the agenda. Therefore, the council cannot take action on any issues or items brought up during public input. For public input, first I have Nancy Henry. Your 3 minutes starts now. Just kidding.
You know, I'm getting. I'm Nancy Henry. I live at 761 Lonesome Dove Lane. I'm bringing this up because we just had the first and the fireworks again. And I know town of Copper Canyon has an ordinance prohibiting fireworks. And the town posts signs in December and July. And in my opinion, residents who ignore our town ordinance should be written a ticket by our police department. We have residents who suffer from PTSD, and many animals are petrified, and it is an extreme fire hazard. We should respect our military residents and visitors who might have PTSD, and other residents who have pets and horses and cows. Back in the day before we had the ordinance, I saw young horses go through barbed wire fence when the fireworks were going on. It is not a safe practice. And I think the town needs to have the police enforce it and write tickets. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, for public input is Ted Stranzik.
Good evening, everyone. Ted Stranzik, 1020 Northbury Trail Court. I'd just like to make a few comments on the agenda for tonight. Does anyone review the agenda prior to submitting it to you people for content and acceptability? We've got a fully loaded agenda tonight, and my sense is it's going to be just pass it. And that's happened in the past. Not good. Much of what is in this agenda needs to be read and discerned. How many of you have read every single thing in this document and are prepared tonight to do it? Outstanding. Everyone should do it, not just me. The following documents within this agenda, I have comments on them, but I've decided I'm not going to give written responses because that's your job. The aviation ordinances, it's not needed, horribly written, and it's an erroneous document. I will elaborate more on that issue later. The ethics ordinance needs more thought about voluntary disclosure, grammar, and composition. These things are not being proofread correctly. The fire code ordinance needs further detailed analysis in several areas. The cost factor should be applied to every new or added code. We are fast approaching construction and regulatory costs that are putting home ownership out of reach. We need to be looking very carefully at the restrictions that we're putting on everybody. NL Ranch CCRs. This document is a well-written booby trap for future homeowners. There are numerous clauses that should be there are numerous clauses that should not be included, which only sabotage the intent of the CCRs. There's a lot of good stuff in that CCR, don't get me wrong. But there's a lot of stuff written that compromises the homeowner more than anything, and that's what we've seen with Boots Ranch and with Williams. New homeowners need to have better protection. And we should be paying more attention to those forms. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Is there anybody else that would like to speak in public input that has not signed up or turned a piece of paper in? I see none. We'll close the public input and move on to the next item on the agenda, and that is a ordinance review update. We have our contractor, Ivan Gonzalez, here to discuss what he's found so far relative to his review. And he has a little PowerPoint presentation for those who can see on the screens from Place Strategies. Good to see you, Ivan.
Good to be here. Good evening, Mayor, rest of the council, staff. Again, my name is Ivan Gonzalez with Place Strategies, and we have been contracted to take a look at the ordinances. And so we've got a process I'd like to walk through, and then just kind of go over the overall, this is our kickoff presentation. We were originally set to do this in December, but with the agenda, holidays, and everything, we want to get this done. We're farther along in the process because of it, but I want to kind of get this out of the way, make sure everybody's on the same understanding and kind of the definitions and kind of what we're out to do. And so I'll start the presentation off by going over just a summary of the different items that are on that contract and the general process. And so, the first thing that we are looking to do is an ordinance review, full comprehensive review of all the ordinances with multiple ordinance reviewers. So this item we have already done in the month of December, and we're finalizing with some peer reviews this month. We have a summary of that ordinance review into staff already. We're doing a quick review before we make it public and bring it before this body. But this is a review, and I'll go over what that process was. This is a technical review. So we're not, really going into any kind of general policy, which direction we want to go. These are looking at, errors, omissions. There's public comment on some of those on some ordinances. This is strictly looking at technical aspects of outdated references. These codes, these are done, decades old. They are modified in some sections, outdated in others. There's cross-referencing that happens. There are organizations and commissions that are referenced in there from the state that have changed rules, changed names, changed authorities. Those types of items is what we're looking for. And again, I'll walk through that process a little bit more in depth after the summary. But that's going to give us technical corrections. We're calling it technical corrections. It's a preliminary report of the errors, misreferences, and unadministered clauses. This is just a technical review. It is the first set of deliverable that we have under this contract. And so this we will provide, and we'd be ready at the end of this month and be able to take a look at next month at the next available meeting to look at those technical items, and I'll be able to go through those in summary at that time as well. The third item is community feedback. So this is review of items that have been brought before the town before. And so these are items that we will be getting from the town, and we will be looking at and reviewing and seeing which policy decision, what are some common items that keep coming up that aren't technical, but the town wants to have more protections towards this, or we want to be able to make development on a resident more streamlined, or things of that nature where there's a particular direction that we want to be looking at. And so that community feedback is going to inform the full ordinance diagnostic. And so that ordinance diagnostic in presentation is the final deliverable. It'll include our technical report. It'll include our diagnostic based on direction from the town of where we want to have an eye on. And then we will have a diagnostic of recommendations and sorted in priority. So high priority, medium priority, low priority, as far as, and then from there, you will have more of a snapshot of where you are at and what things we can work on, or if the technical corrections are enough, it can end there. And we can be able to, just go ahead and correct the things that we have in the books currently and keep what we have. That's a decision that, you can make informed at that time. So project process, so I want to kind of just walk through some of those items that I summarized. So the review process, it's a line-by-line review of all 14 current ordinances, including the newest additions of the subdivision and tree ordinances. Thank you, I did receive those and we did review those. Identification of all the references in the 14 ordinances and verification on applicability and content. So, knowing what each one of those does and why it's in the ordinance and does it still need to be in the ordinance, those are kind of all questions that we ask ourselves when we identify these. Validation of content and identification of missing content based on general administration and practicality. So I've been an administrator on the city side most of my career. And so, as I administer these codes, we have bumped into common things all the time where, hey, I don't quite have the ordinance to be able to support some of the things that we are looking for in the town, or just the necessary language to be able to do, or be able to respond to a developer or somebody else trying to come in and trying to impose their own development onto the town. And so those are the types of things that we'll be looking for. Here's just an example of one of your ordinances, of some of the, when we go line by line, we're reviewing every single line, every single clause, but then we're highlighting and cross-referencing as we go through. So ordinance references to other documents, do those documents still exist? Are they named differently? Have there been changes to some of those organizations? Like I said, some of the Texas organizations have changed from when these were originally adopted. Definitions, ordinance references to specific components or language. I've reviewed the codes now at this point. I know that there are multiple definitions that are different across multiple chapters. There are certain, the Development Review Committee is defined in over 3 chapters, and it's a different definition in each one of them. And so, it can get confusing when we're talking and going through processes on referencing one group when it might be defined and somebody has read it in another chapter. And so things like that we're reviewing. And so definitions are actually a big holdup on a lot of these ordinances. Each one of these chapters has their own definition, and each one of them has items that are cross-referenced into the other chapters. So that's a big component of cleaning these up. Conflicts and duplications, ordinance writing that contradicts other parts or is duplicative. If the same ordinance or same clause is written in 2 different chapters, why is it in both? And did it, over time, sometimes those things can change in one but remain on the other. Those are conflict points that we want to identify, clean up, have it in one spot, referencing in the other, so that we don't have these conflict points come up again. So as far as the review process goes, missing or incorrect references, these are all part of the technical aspect. And so this will be the first deliverable that I provide. Will be just missing incorrect references, regulation conflicts. This first point is going to be minimal rewriting and just correcting. And so if it's duplicative and one of them is still correct, we want to just remove the other clause and keep it intact. We're not rewriting at this point. I will be taking direction from this group afterwards to see if there is any rewriting that needs to happen. This is just corrections at this point. Regulation conflicts and practical administration mishaps. So anything in just the practice of administering these codes, there's vague language that can't really be administered. Those types of items we identify. We won't rewrite those, but we will identify them in the diagnostics so that hey, these are items that could potentially be worded better, rewritten, so that Troy has a better time trying to enforce these things. So as far as the process goes, I wanted to lay out a little bit of the last month and the months coming up. So like I mentioned before, the full ordinance review, we have completed that. We're doing some more peer reviews, and we do have that summary document into staff for them to take a quick look before we become public on it. Today is the kickoff presentation, understanding the scope, and also allowing this group to have a moment to be able to ask me questions about it as well. And then January, we want to have those recommended technical corrections go public at the end of this month, and have you guys review that. And then in February, we would like to then start receiving some of that feedback that you guys have already documented, so that we can start incorporating that into the diagnostic. And then in March, hopefully have a full ordinance diagnostic, a presentation and recommendations, and then at that time, allow you guys to really sink in and understand that document and the full process, and then from there, give me feedback on what you would like to do, or just leave it at that point, because we will have a red line of technical corrections at that point that you can take and adopt and just clean up, and do minimal rewriting at that point. And then I wanted to just show an example of a code diagnostic that we've done before. Again, most of my experience has been on the public side, so I've done a lot of these code diagnostics just as staff, working in the department. But this is one that we did at Little Elm. It's a little bit different because it incorporated their comprehensive plan and then cross-referencing with their ordinances. Is the vision that we have outlined, are the ordinances getting us to that vision or not? And so a little bit different, but it's a good example of something in the area that can kind of show what a matrix and diagnostic could look like. So let's talk about the final deliverable. I mentioned a little bit about what will be in it, but it will have the technical corrections, that first deliverable within it, summarized, and kind of all of the recommendations there. But then it'll also have the review matrix, full 14 ordinance review matrix, all identified with references and key clauses. So you can just walk through that matrix and be able to locate, okay, Yvonne mentions that there is duplicative definitions here for Development Review Committee. Here are the 5 chapters where he's bringing that from. Here is where we would want to clean that up with the recommendation. So the recommended changes, ordinance by ordinance, breakdown of recommended updates to the code with priority level based on feedback. Some of that feedback from the town that you guys have already, there should be priority levels of things that you want to tackle. We'll take that into consideration as far as, what would be a priority or not. And then a summary presentation. Overall presentation that summarizes the highlights of the diagnostic and explains the categories. And so, a big part of this process, any process really in ordinance writing or, in my experience for zoning and subdivision is education, making sure that everybody understands the base level of what we're doing so that everybody can be able to talk about it intelligently. So that's also part of the contracted scope that we have in here. That's all I have. I wanted to give an opportunity for questions as well, anything like that. But working with Troy on scheduling, we have a bi-weekly check-in to be able to just review process, progress, and then schedule the next meeting to be able to show the deliverables. With that, I give it back to the mayor.
Appreciate that. Does any council member have any questions for Yvonne?
I have one. I think your timeline on the diagnostic is fair. So assuming that's done by March, how long after that do you anticipate rewrites to take?
It's hard to say because I don't know what I would be rewriting at that point. We would want to see, based on your guys' feedback, okay, what chapters, what clauses, is it, one chapter, is it just specific areas or definitions, cleaning up definitions and taking all the definitions and putting them to one? It really depends on that. We could start right away, following the direction from council, but hard to say depending on what it would be that we would be rewriting.
But did our contract just go for diagnostic, or did that include rewrites? Because I believe it's just diagnostic, correct?
Just diagnostic.
And technical review and any kind of thing like that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the goal of the council at that time was to, let's benchmark where we were, and then once we see how far we need to go, we can pick and choose. As Yvonne mentioned, do we want to focus on this first or this first, versus just saying, okay, they're going to rewrite these chapters and then, kind of go through that process. So you're correct. It was really just get through the diagnostic and see kind of where some areas are that we need to improve on.
Thank you very much. My vision of this operation is get our things fixed, get the problems fixed, and then maybe we're gonna have to have a council meeting with the information that you presented to us, and then talk about if we wanna rewrite anything, any ordinances. Because ordinance rewrite, ordinance manipulation is a drug-on problem. So we're gonna work on that if we need to.
I mean, I asked the question because I've been serving the town for 6 years now in P&Z and now on council, and this has always been, I know it's a big boulder to push up a hill, but it's been a real issue for us, our ordinances, for a long time. And I'm trying to set expectations that maybe this is the year we get over that hump.
Well, I gotta give kudos to Troy and the council for approving the contract for Yvonne to go through it in a real professional. And it looks like you're doing a great job, and I'm glad you're doing it, not me.
I was just gonna say, I thank you for coming in and for your ability to just really explain and I don't envy you, that you're explaining in a very, succinct way what it is to see things, what we're seeing, and the necessity for us to be able to, and I thank everyone for approving that contract, to have definitions and places and just that confusion, and that is the mess that we're in. So to be able to just get through this place of being able to have a rewrite and to have a clean document and an ordinance where we can really feel good about where we are, and then just take a breather and say, okay, we've accomplished this as a council, and then go from there, and to be able to partner with you and say, we have this success. Because we also need to look at our residents and have our residents that we are an elected group and that our residents are pleased, because we need to take that public input and say, are our residents pleased with what we've done? Because that ultimately is what we're doing here. We are not doing this. We're doing this in conjunction and in partnership with our residents. And once we've done that, then we can all look at it with our residents and say, are our residents pleased? What do we all want to do as a town?
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Troy, you got anything? Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Appreciate the good briefing. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is staff reports. Staff, mayor, and council reports of items of community interest. I'll just mention, as a reminder, we have an election coming up, and the sign up for a position, we have 3 positions, of course, that'll every year come up for voting in May. And so if you want to sign up, it opens up January 13th and then closes February 14th.
Sorry, the 14th. It starts the 14th.
Oh, thank you.
Wednesday the 14th, and it ends February 13th.
There you go. Thank you, Sheila. Appreciate it. So start soon. Got a month to think about it. We appreciate any volunteers if you want to run. And then we'll go from there.
And Mayor, those packets are here at the office for anybody who's interested in picking them
Yes.
up.
You got to come into the town office, sign up. Anybody else have any interest items on the council? Troy, all right, next we'll go to staff reports. And that's Troy.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of quick highlights. We're hopefully going to receive our final proposal to update the dais and make it more secure. And so we're continuing to work on that, and we're hoping to get that final proposal in by the end of next week. We want to congratulate Councilmember Dahl. He sat through 5 hours of financial training that's required for his position. So kudos to him for getting that done over the holidays. We are also working with Safe Build to update our building codes. As you guys know, the fire code, we're reviewing that, and that's on the agenda for tonight. So we're working with those guys to look at our building code and kind of move that forward over the next couple of months. One of the other things you guys may have gotten an email on is the water well that Cross Timbers Water maintains over on Orchid Hill by the railroad tracks. They have had to re-drill that well and do some work over there, and now they're going to go through a flushing process to kind of get that done. They were supposed to do it over the past week, this weekend, and it looks like it's got postponed to probably over the next week or two. So if you drive by that location and you see an extremely above average amount of water running down into a bar ditch from that site, they've got to do so much flushing before they can make that well live and start storing water. So just heads up, they've got some signs out. We got some information on our website about that as well.
When did they switch over their source? Because I feel like 2 weeks ago it changed.
We've gotten a couple calls on that, and I believe they have. And so a lot of times when water providers switch their source of water, you may get a little bit different smell or a little bit, that type of thing. So, but they've got to treat the water. They got to meet state standards on how they treat it and how it gets discharged and the quality of the water as well. So they may have done that.
I want to mention one thing. When I've looked into that before, and I didn't look into it right now, but it's usually they end up buying water from some other source, and that's where you get a difference in the taste or whatever texture of the water. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I will let them know. I'll pass that along. We also, as you guys know, we are having monthly meetings as it relates to the Estate Bridge project. So we recently had one this past week, and they are about 30% done with engineering. And so we're looking to have another face-to-face meeting with the 4 residents that live right next to the bridge over the next couple weeks, and to kind of inform them where we're at in the process. If you guys recall, they're looking to have the engineer completed by the summer, August timeframe, and this is all being done through the county. And then from there, they'll look at doing some cost estimates along the way, and then find the funding to do the project and take it out to bid and do all those things. And so there's still a lot of work to be done, but it continues to move forward. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. Some upcoming dates. We've got January 16th, we're observing Martin Luther King Day. Right, so it's the January 19th is MLK Day. So our offices will be closed. We have a BOA meeting on the 26th, and then we have a second P&Z meeting on the 26th as well. Copper Knolls Estates, they have, if you've driven by that site lately, they have put the fence on the perimeter. They've got the gate up. They got the street lights on. And so they're getting closer to requesting a final acceptance on public improvements, but we have not done that yet. So that's getting closer. Awney Ranch, as you guys know, they're working on all the infrastructure and all the dirt work. So all that continues as well. And tonight, I think where you've got the CCRs in front of you. And those are generally my updates. And then I'll turn it over to Chief Ty to talk about the police department.
Hey, Troy, just quickly, do we have an update on Spectrum?
Um,
Where the heck are they? We were
they,
told they were finished by now.
No, Spectrum, where they're at is they completed a lot of the burial. They did about 98% of that. They had to do all the overheads and connect to CoServe's poles, and so they were waiting for permits from CoServe, and they just have recently received that. So now you're going to see a lot of work as it relates to aerials. There'll be some underground that needs to be done during that process as well. But that's where they're at. And so that's going to go probably the next, 60 days before they can get all that complete.
So not finished by the end of the month like they thought that we were.
Correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
Maybe closer to March or April.
Yes. If I had to estimate that, probably closer to March. That is correct.
All right, thank you.
So there you go.
Thank you, Troy. Appreciate it. Chief.
Mayor, council, again, I'm Roger Ty, in case anybody doesn't know who I am, I'm your chief of police. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the December stats for the department. We had about 64 calls for service. Not all of those generated police reports or anything like that. We had a slight decrease, so only about 143 citations were issued, but we've had an officer that's been out for like 2 weeks. Nothing major, he's just been traveling vacation. We ended the year with 27 total reports, which is almost a 50% increase from 2024. And a lot of those, unfortunately, remain internet-based fraud. So please remember, if you get any type of contact or a bill, something on your internet or even in the mail and saying that you have to make the payment by gift cards or make a wire transfer, it's 99.9% it's going to be it's a scam. So if you have any doubts, call us. Unfortunately, a lot of these are originating from outside the United States.
Chief, could you mind back up the...
Oh, sorry about that. A lot of those are coming out of the through the internet, but they're out of country. Which isn't to say that we can't start the process to help you guys recover any potential losses. But if you have any concerns or doubts, email us, call us, stop by the office, and say, hey, I got this weird text message or phone call or something like that, and we definitely want to know about that. Event-wise, I think we had the Santa Claus event that was well attended, though I think that had more to do with our brethren over at the fire department, because I have to admit it, fire trucks are a lot cooler than cop cars. So, but again, feel free anytime. I like talking to people, even if it's just to come by and just chew the fat. Come by, come see us.
Chief, I do have a question in response to Ms. Henry's question. Were there any warnings or citations issued on New Year's Eve for fireworks?
No, it was surprisingly quiet other than some minor, we weren't seeing any aerials like we did last year. They were everywhere last year. I stayed out and worked with the evening shift officer, but I left just after midnight. And unfortunately, we did have an event happen over in Boots Ranch about 12:30 that culminated in a little bit of criminal mischief. But that was handled by our friends over at the sheriff's office. They did not issue any citations for that, however. And I listened to the video, and they probably should have, because those sounded like commercial grade fireworks. And again, to kind of go back to like the PTSD veteran, having received mortar fire and rocket fire, that's what it sounded like. So.
Well, I heard that Canyon Oaks had a professional commercial fireworks display, and of course, you know that's ETJ. So that went on a long time, because I got calls.
What time was that?
Chase, do you remember, like midnight or 11:30, 12?
Okay.
Went on for
Now,
hours.
about that time, we were handling a dog bite case, but no, we didn't receive any calls specifically for fireworks. We were just driving around trying to locate things.
Was the
but-
dog issue on New Year's Eve also?
Yes.
Was there a warning issued there?
No, we never got contact with the victim. It was reported by the nursing staff at the hospital, and actually it occurred much earlier in the day. But the victim went onto somebody else's property and picked up a dog, and the dog didn't like it. And so I think that's why they were reluctant to contact us back. So we're still in the process of trying to get that ironed out.
Okay. I mean,
But
that,
it was a very
I got
minor
a lot of
incident.
information about that, and there's a lot of conflicting information about it.
Yeah.
And, I think that's something that we
We're
need to pay
still trying to
attention.
iron it out, but we can't, trying to force people to tell us stuff is kind of the rub on that one.
Okay.
And then there was a different dog issue in Boots Ranch as well, but that's been taken care of at this
Okay,
point.
good. Thank you.
To your knowledge, have we ever written a citation for fireworks here?
We didn't last year. I was able to get a lot of voluntary compliance because I worked last year. And for some reason, people would stop firing fireworks when I showed up in the neighborhood and put spotlights on them and said, hey, come on, you can't do that.
But it would be your intent to?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Especially if someone's setting off commercial grade, because that's that can damage property. It scares people.
Relative to the fireworks issue, I'll just mention, as we know, we haven't had a lot of rain. It's very dry. And, we put out the signs, Troy did. We put out the signs, we put it on the website, and of course, it's one of our ordinances, no fireworks at all in town for the various reasons that we've already stated. That being said, there's a penalty to it, i.e. a citation, but that doesn't stop people from doing it. We would appreciate, this year I thought was a better year than last year. And I really appreciate the people restraint that held off on doing fireworks that not only affect you for fun, but also affect other people for hatred, for bad stuff. So, just really appreciate the activity we had this year. I thought it was down, and maybe we can get better next year. Anybody else comments for the chief? Nope. Now let's go to the town engineer's not here today. How about fire department chief? Other chief, mom. Or no.
Evening, Mayor, Council. Happy New Year, everyone. Hope everyone had a safe and happy holidays. We did end up a year, we ended up delivering hundreds, and I mean like so many we lost track because they had to make multiple trips. We had hundreds of toys delivered and to Sadie Slay, which is a local nonprofit. And we also donated about 437 pounds of food to the Argyle Food Bank. So just kudos to the community for just stepping up and really making a difference. It really does make a difference. In other news, we've got some big news coming a little bit early, actually. We've got 2 new replacement ambulances coming. These are ambulances we ordered about 2 years ago. So these are not, these will replace 2 of our existing ambulances. Those ambulances will become reserve ambulances. So those are scheduled. They were supposed to be here in February, but they're actually going to be here before the end of the month. So we hope to get those in service. Once they get here, it'll take about, 4 to 6 weeks of, mounting stuff and getting them all ready. So I suspect by March they'll be in service. One of those will be for the new station in North Lake. We'll be moving it to there. So we're glad to get those in, which is perfect timing because if you recall back around the fiscal year, ESD2, which provides EMS services, they got a loan. Now they own officially half the fire stations and all the ambulances. So we just recently got all the formal title work done for all that, and so these 2 new ambulances will be appropriately titled, and it's going to work out as far as the timing goes there. We do have an annual report committee that has already met. They're meeting again, I think, this week, and we're starting to work on compiling all our data for our annual report. You will be receiving that annual report in, I would suspect, March. That's our plan. It'll be in addition to what you normally receive in the monthly report, along with what we're working on. You should get the next few days an end-of-year report that kind of goes along, I give you the monthly report, but I also do one very similar to this. It's kind of an end of the year, kind of wraps up the whole year. And then we take all that data and then some, and then we put it into an annual report. So just kind of let you know how that's going. Talking about the fireworks, we did have a few grass fires, not real bad. The biggest fire we had was in North Lake. If you know where Canyon Falls is over in that area, there's about 20, 30 acres burnt there, but most of them are small. Most people, I will commend the towns, Carver Canyon, Bartonville, a lot of them who've adopted those ordinances. They have put out the signs. And I can tell you when I first came here, they weren't doing those signs, and we were running a lot. And so the signs do work. They're kind of a deterrent. They're kind of a reminder. So, hey, in case you didn't know. Unfortunately, we have a very unique district where we have a lot of towns, we have a lot of county, and there's a lot of intermix there, and so it's kind of where the lines are blurred. So, but I do appreciate the towns putting those signs out. They do make a difference. And then I know on the agenda we also have for the fire code. We're going to talk about that tonight. I'll wait and save comments for that then. But other than that, I'll answer any questions you have.
You said 20 acres?
Yeah, about 20. I was 20, 30 acres burnt.
And that's small?
I've had bigger, yeah.
Oh,
So,
okay.
It was fireworks related. Now, interesting enough, it was during the day. It wasn't at night. Some kids out there and got into a field behind the neighborhood and burned up about 20, 30 acres. So, yeah. We've had some bigger ones, but it's a good size. That's a good size grass fire. So it was quite a bit, and it's hard to get to the terrain. Some creeks and stuff. So you got to kind of go from different approaches. But we did have one. So the rest were small. We burned up pretty easily.
Chief, I saw something I got from communication about the monthly report.
Yes.
And I looked at the response times, which were outstanding. Looked like Copper Canyon was almost 6 minutes or something response time.
It was very unique because, ironically, this past December was our busiest month ever. I mean, we were really busy. But interesting enough, we also track overlapping calls. And usually we have a pretty high percentage of overlapping calls. For whatever reason, We did not, we had the most calls ever, but they were evenly spaced out. They weren't like, 3 happening at once and, just overlapping calls. And so, but because of that, it reduced our response time, because you didn't have, if you got overlapping calls, then that means a fire engine or ambulance is having to come even farther to get there, so it impacts your response time. So it's kind of a coincidental, I can't really explain it.
Just take the
Sometimes-
win.
Sometimes sometimes look at the data and I go, how did this happen? And I go back, is this right? And I go back and look and,
Because that's unique for Copper Canyon
Yeah.
because of how you guys have to
yeah.
traverse in our town. But anyway, thank you for
Yes,
that.
Copper Canyon is unique because it's a big square with no roads in between, so it's kind of a unique situation. But it's got a lot of character too, so I'll stop there. Any other questions for me?
Nope, thank you, Chief, appreciate
Thank you
it.
very much.
And we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is a consent item. Items on the consent agenda are routine and administrative nature. As such, these items are considered for approval on a single motion and vote generally without discussion.
Wait, can I ask a question about engineering?
Generally without the, yes, absolutely.
Okay, sorry. We
No,
skipped
no.
over that.
Look,
I did have a question, a couple of things on the engineering. Unfortunately, Schaefer's not here. I do have a question.
Are you back to staff reports? Back-
Yeah, staff reports.
okay.
Engineering staff reports.
Sure.
One of my questions has to do with our budget, when I was looking over the budget, because yes, Ted, I did read every document into this. You'd be very proud of me. And on engineering services, we budgeted 90,000. We're at 75.5 now. So we're at 83, almost 84% of budget.
Right.
Is there, who's minding the store on that?
So we are, and we build some of the developers back for some of those costs as well. So some of that gets billed back to the developers. So if you look at the developments we have, there's been a lot more inspections done, and they've been asked to go out and do weekly inspections of those sites to ensure that the developers are following, the drawings and everything that they got to do as it relates to engineering. And so I can get you a report that shows you what we bill the developers back as well.
I'm just concerned with Ani Ranch coming up, and also I wanted to ask about Copper Creek. I know Councilmember Hubbard has asked about that. That's been going on, Copper Creek 3, for like a year. I understand that we have some culpability in that, but at what point do we just say enough is enough?
So Copper Creek Phase 3, the only thing that we're engaged in was the drainage, the subsurface draining that ran through Copper Canyon, and that's it. And all that's been completed and approved. So we don't have anything engineering-wise related to Phase 3 anymore.
Okay, so that should drop off.
Correct.
Because it's still on their engineer report, so that
Right.
should drop off.
And then, Mike-
then also on the engineering design manual, it says revisions have been submitted. Are you going over those, or who?
Yeah,
are
so the mayor and I are looking at those, and so we're looking to have those revisions to the council next month. So they've been looking through those based on their agreement as well, and so some of that cost is part of that line item
the
as well.
engineering? Because I know that before we took office, the previous council approved the contract
Correct,
for TMP, correct? Almost 40,000
correct.
to do their engineering design manual. And so is that part of the money that we've spent already?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct, that's in that line item. It's
Okay.
coming to a close, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Very good. Anyways, back to the consent item. Council members can remove an item or items from the agenda so it can be considered separately and/or take action on discussion on an agenda posted as part of the consent agenda. And the 3 items we have are approved December 8th, 2025 minutes for the council meeting, approved November 2025 financials, and approved December 2025 financials. And those are in our package. Any discussion on those 3 consent items from anyone? I'll take a motion to approve the consent items as listed.
I'll make the motion that we approve the consent agenda as listed.
Motion by Councilmember Hubbard, and there's a second.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilmember Lippert. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All against, say nay. And the consent items have been agreed to by unanimous decision. Move to the next item, item number 9, public hearing and discussion items. This is going to be an open meeting on a proposal we have coming up for a ordinance change and an ordinance addition. We will conduct a public hearing to hear public comment and discuss an ordinance amending the comprehensive zoning and ordinance of the town relating to aviation activities, including and amending Exhibit 14A zoning ordinance. Article 2, General District Zoning Regulations, Section 2-102, Use Radar, Use Yard and Bulk Requirements. A, use groups below residential by adding aviation activities, helispot, heliport, hang glider, ultralight, and other aviation activity, subsection. And by amending Exhibit 14A zoning ordinance. Article 11, definitions, Section 11-102, words and terms, aviation activity, aviation facility, heliport, helispot, limited use, operator, the town, to provide definition by amending Exhibit 14A zoning ordinance. Article 4, supplemental provision by adding subsection 4-122, aviation activities, to include purpose permitting, exceptions for emergency use, application requirements for temporary operations, design and operational standards, enforcement, and providing a severability and effective date clause. So I'll open a public hearing on this subject at 8:07 local time, and I'll kick it off to start off with. Well, let's ask for public hearing. We'll let people talk first. We'll go with public hearing. We have a couple people have requested here to speak. Nancy Henry is first on my list.
I'm Nancy Henry. I live at 761 Lonesome Dove Lane. And I'm going to thank everybody for their service on the council and for that long meeting you went to, Jeff, to study the economics. I wanted to clarify some stuff. In August 2025, a friend of mine over in Double Oak notified me about Double Oak's public hearing for a helipad, which was withdrawn because of incorrect timing and paperwork. And so then the owner reapplied, and the P&Z denied it due to the town residents turning out in force saying they did not want it. My friend is the former mayor of Double Oak, and he suggested in August that the town of Copper Canyon be proactive in creating an ordinance to prohibit, regulate helicopters in our town. So we didn't have the same thing happen where this guy would move here. I contacted Mayor Jeff Mayer and asked Copper Canyon to be proactive in creating an ordinance against helicopters in Copper Canyon. Contrary to what has been posted on social media, the mayor has never advocated for aviation in town of Copper Canyon. He was just following my recommendation that we start looking at stuff to do this. This is not a permanent ordinance, it's just up for discussion, and I think people lose sight of that. Over in Double Oak, 37 people and the ex-mayor mailed their town council and mayor asking for it to be put on the agenda again December 15th, and they were denied it be put on the agenda. So that's all still up in the works over there too. But I think we need to be proactive, coming up with something that everybody in the town can agree to. Thank you.
Ms. Henry, I have a question for you on that issue. So since you're more familiar with Double Oak and stuff and your connections over there, so the application was applied for operations of helicopters inside of Double Oak.
Yeah, he wanted to build a helipad.
Right. And the question is, does Double Oak have any sort of ordinance relative to aviation activity or anything like that inside there?
No, and that's what concerns Mike Donnelly, is that any helicopter can land anywhere, anytime. You don't have to have the helipad. So they, you know, they can come in, land in my pasture, your property over there, and anytime they want. They don't have to have regulation for it.
Due to the lack of a guidance from the town, it exposes that town, Double Oak, to violations or landings by people with friends with helicopters and those kind of things.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was clear on
He
that.
doesn't have to have a helipad to fly it there. He can just fly it any time.
Right. Okay,
The guy
thank you.
that bought the property. Thank you.
Next on my list we have is Mitch Vexler.
Good evening. My name is Mitch Vexler, 4536 Mahogany Lane, Copper Canyon. Let me start this off by saying I'm not adverse to helicopters. In fact, when I'm under construction, I've often thought about it, even from my own yard, because it would have been immensely helpful. With that said, I'm not ignorant enough or arrogant enough to think that I'm going to back a helicopter out of my garage, raise it up, start it up, fly out of a deed-restricted subdivision, fly down to Flower Mound, go to dinner at my Chinese restaurant in my office building, and fly back and park it 40 minutes later. This is out and out nuts. With that said, it's my understanding that the zoning is to prohibit any takeoff and landings in the town of Copper Canyon, be it from a public and or a private heliport, that is not for emergency purposes only. Does anyone in the town of Copper Canyon, be it council or P&Z, know what the noise level is from a helicopter at 500 feet? The answer is 87 decibels. At 100 feet, it's 120 decibels. It's the equivalent of standing in front of speakers at a rock concert. That's how loud that is. It's the equivalent of standing next to a jet engine at an airport. Helicopters belong at airports, not over private residences. If somebody was to vote in favor of a heliport, be it public or private, what restrictions would be placed on the hours of operation, pilot training, advertising pulled behind the helicopter? Do we even have EMS that's trained in helicopter crash scenarios? If zoning was allowed to occur, whether it's in favor of public or private heliports, what recourse, joint and severally liable, do the homeowners have with regard to the town failing to adhere to and enforce its zoning and the operations of the heliport? You're opening up Pandora's box if this zoning was allowed to go through. What if the heliport operator decides, I'm going to switch to jet engines on my helicopter? What if he goes and he decides, you know something? I got a big deal from the government. I've just bought myself a dual rotor Huey. It would shake the entire town of Copper Canyon if that thing was landing. Did anybody at the town of Copper Canyon do a cost-benefit analysis with regard to lowering the property taxes that will be sued for as a direct result of the destruction of peace and quiet in the town of Copper Canyon, its neighborhoods, and its houses? If there's anybody that understands about the property taxes, it's me. I understand what this means. You can look up my name on YouTube and find out exactly who I am and what I'm doing. The questions I'm asking are rhetorical. I know the answers. It's important that City Council understand what those answers are and exactly the points that I'm driving at. Because if this zoning is approved, be it for public or private heliports, doesn't matter. There's an extraordinarily high probability that multiple people will be sued, joint and severally liable, for the damages from which the town does not have an insurance policy that will cover it. It's opening up Pandora's box. I'm asking you to shut the door. The answer to the heliport is rather simple. Be it public or private, the answer is no. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Next on the list we have is Ted Stranzik.
Good evening again. My name is Ted Stranzik, 1020 North Berry Trail Court. To say the least, and I can preface what I want to say by the fact that I've been in aviation for 50 years. I've pretty much seen everything. I've not flown helicopters, but I've flown in helicopters. I've managed helicopter operations, maintenance, overhaul, assembly, disassembly, crash rescue, you name it. None of it, and all of it, can occur given this very poorly written ordinance. You know, this is a book that says FARs, Federal Air Regulations, Airman's Information Manual. It gives you a definition of a heliport. It gives you a definition of an aircraft and a helicopter. What you people are saying in this ordinance is a helicopter is an aircraft, and an aircraft is a helicopter. That's wrong. They're independent elements. When you write an ordinance, it better comply with the definitions that are in the Federal Air Regulations. Or like Mitch said, you're in deep, deep legal trouble. And when I look at how this document is written, it's disgustingly bad. It's like you've never been in aviation and you've tried to fill in the blank with what you think happens. You use terms, helispot. There is no such term in aviation. It's made up. And whoever made it up and used it is going to have to own it. And if something happens, how are you going to explain that? You can't. You're liable, and you're going to be held liable. There's a document going around about how a helicopter can land anywhere. You know, that's correct. But it can also crash anywhere. Not only crash, but being a pilot, over 5,000 hours, it's called safety. You operate that aircraft or that helicopter safely. Can you land anywhere in town? Probably, but not safely. You have to define what the elements are of a safe helipad. You also have to look at all the foreign object damage and other ancillary activity that will impact the operation of that vehicle here. You don't have that here at all. You have more animals. You don't have a flight path. We got civil helicopters. We have military helicopters. We have police helicopters. We have airborne evac and emergency. I've dealt with all of those. They all have unique capabilities, but what you're proposing here isn't going to fit in any of those elements. It's simply not safe. The second part of this is regulatory compliance. You're operating in the airspace of the FAA, controlled by the FAA. And you have certain regulations. You call this helispot. It's an LZ, it's a landing zone. It's defined in here what it should be called. And I don't know who came up with all these definitions.
Your 3 minutes are up, Ted.
This is an open meeting, Mayor.
You have
3 minutes don't apply.
Yes, it does, but I have
No,
a
it
couple-
doesn't.
Yeah.
I really sincerely believe you people need to look at what's going on.
I'm sorry, but if the mayor has asked you to stop speaking, then that's what you're going to need to do.
I'm not going to let you, you don't have to leave right now, but I do have a couple questions for you. First of all, as you well know, I too am a pilot with over 30,000 hours of flying all the way around the world. And aircraft are aircraft. by the way. Helicopters are aircraft.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are. Wait, don't, you can leave. Okay. The next question, okay. We'll discuss my issues then afterwards. Next person up is Jeff Hubbard.
Whoops. Jeff Hubbard, 400 Clare Court. Couple of notes. And poor Deborah and Troy have got to hear this once already. I agree with Ted. I agree with Mitch. This ordinance is an abomination. First, we talk about limited use. We can give back-to-back, or we can give individual daily use. Somebody can come in here on January 2nd, ask for a permit with no idea of when when they're gonna be flying, which means we could issue 50 permits and have 50 helicopters in the air over Copper Canyon on Christmas Eve. None of us want 2 helicopters touching blades and us having the families and bodies of families spread all over some pasture someplace. I don't think anybody here wants to wake up after dreaming of dead bodies and dead kids and having to pick up their charred bodies. This doesn't work. Second, a comment was made that, and this was in a post, that was said, neither myself nor the town is advocating any sort of heliport in Copper Canyon. However, in this latest draft, it specifically talks about helistops and heliports may be considered for conditional use and only be allowed in districts specifically designated in zoning ordinances, which are R5 and R10. So in one place we say we're not going to allow helipads, another place we do say we're going to allow helipads. It's contradictory. And finally, when you look at the insurance provisions, because that's what I do, there's no notation on how much insurance these people are going to have. They can go out and get a $100,000 policy. You have 2 helicopters run into each other, and you got 8 bodies strewn all over the place. $1 million isn't going to do it. We need to assign a value that these people are going to have to present. In addition, our standards need to include a waiver, a hold harmless, and an indemnification of the city so that we don't have to pick up the tab. Because if we're going to let somebody do it, at least let's don't pay for it when something bad does happen, because eventually something bad will happen. I looked through Deborah's bio, noticed that Deborah was in the city of Fairview. I applaud the city of Fairview on their ordinance. Their ordinance allows a one-time use special permit, which I think is the way we should be going. I think going down this path is a fool's errand, and we should look at the Fairview policy and adopt it. It's much better.
Your 3 minutes, sir. But I do have a couple questions if you're willing to stand up there, if you don't mind. Okay. So the question is, how many helicopters can land today in Copper Canyon? Are there any restrictions to that?
There are
no restrictions.
Right.
We could have your 100 helicopters land today.
We could.
We could have 200 helicopters.
We could.
So throwing that number out there, Jeff, is a facetious argument because it's never going to happen. Well, I'm going to talk reality. The reality is somebody comes in and says, hey, I want to come pick you up to go take a tour of land I want to buy or something like that, right? It has to be permitted. And that's the idea behind this, the ability to restrict and have a quality control item officer in charge of authorizing an operation. And we want that, we want that information done.
And that's what Fairview's.
Fairview. So you said one-time permit, right?
Yes.
How many restrictions, how many one-time permits can be issued? Unlimited. There is no number. We have, on this initial thing, and we're going to discuss this more, we have a limit of 3 per year, per calendar year.
Per person?
Okay? No. Per individual or whoever it is.
But it doesn't
In
say that in
Fairview,
here.
your argument for Fairview, though, is that you say it's one-time permit. He can show up the next day and get another permit. He can show up the next day and get another permit. He can show up the next day and get another permit. They do not have a restriction on the number of yearly permits that can be authorized for anybody that has control of a helicopter. This ordinance written as tentatively right now does, all right?
Then why don't we write it with the Fairview wording and
Because-
say one single-use permit per year, per
Well, we
res-
may, this council may take your suggestion and make it that way. I can't tell you that. But this is an initial thing. I copied Fairview's, and the answer to this is I used Fairview's answer because I had that information from your wife earlier, and
I would like to make a point of order that we're not gonna have any extra conversation.
could we have the council request order in the chamber while we're discussing? Could we have council order in the chamber? So my point is, Jeff, is that we're working on this, and I would love to have every one of your comments written down on an email that the council can analyze, so we can analyze this, because right now, this town is exposed to helicopter operations. And contrary to what has been said earlier, they can go everywhere, and every night, we have helicopters fly over top of us. I've had reports of helicopters flying low altitude over right along 407. We have a helicopter pilot right behind us. Mr. Siciliano is going to be up with us later on. Look, I'm going to ask you a question, if you don't mind, while we're discussing this. Are helicopters aircraft? They are aircraft. You're exactly right. Every helicopter pilot I ever flew with says they are aircraft. And that's why I used the term when I wrote this up, to copy not only airplanes, but helicopters. It's an all-inclusive thing. I used Fairview as my guide to draft this initial thing. Now we're bringing it for initial input. We're going to discuss this a little more. We're going to leave this open and be able to get a final comment. But I would love to see your comments written to the town council and to Troy so we can marry it into this thing and ordinance, because right now our town is exposed. We are exposed to those two helicopters hitting each other, just like you said. But if we have a permit required, if we have a control officer, we have the ability to control and say, no, you get to come in, you do not. That's the purpose of permitting and having a control officer. And if you read the ordinance, you know that we have in there also requirements to verify insurance. We have, and I assume that anybody who operates an aircraft or an airplane or a helicopter has a ticket to do it and a rating and all scheduled and things like that. I assume he's not stealing the helicopter from Addison and bringing it up here. So my only point is, I welcome any comments you have. Please write them so we can evaluate them and bring that in and develop it into this final program. But I believe personally, and we'll see if the town council agrees, that we need some kind of ordinance to protect this town. Fairview has an ordinance, Double Oak does not, and they are exposed.
We
And
are
I've got-
all in agreement that we need an ordinance. I firmly believe, even at the same time or before the time of Nancy, there were other people in this community that were asking for an ordinance to prohibit helicopters taking off and landing. Victoria and I both sat and watched the P&Z meeting, and we both watched the town council meeting. And what it came down to is they were able to reject that because it was not in their zoning ordinances. That was what they stood on, was their zoning ordinance did not have a specific place for helipads and heliports. What worries me about this is now we do.
Only if it's permitted. It may not be permitted. That's the whole thing. And those words are in other ordinances from other towns. I didn't just make this up as been expressed by some people in this room. This is not made up. I've used ordinance language from other cities to protect this town and to keep our people safe and our animals safe. And I hope we're able to develop something that will protect this town, because right now we are highly exposed. Any other
He just said who was able to reject the,
So the town
but
council.
the way I understand it is that Double Oak was able to reject it because the paperwork was not correct.
No,
No, they don't have a zoning for aviation.
What they did is they came back and they said, our zoning does not have an aviation zone. What we're saying is for R5 and R10, we will now have an aviation zone. So it will now be in our zoning ordinances that we will affirmatively have that zoning.
It's also in Fairviews, it's also in Justin's, it's also in other cities that we have around us and things like that. So for zoning, for the ability for people, but it's got to be permitted. And I don't think we would ever authorize that kind of thing. But I mean, we're going to discuss this later on and throughout the evening and stuff, but this is the first shot at it, and any comments you have, please write them down and send them to us.
Jeff,
Certainly.
what were you saying, R5 and R10? Are you saying you wanna limit?
So it's currently, in the draft as currently presented, it's only for R5 and R10. But it has to be, keep in mind, it has to actually be zoned as part of the master plan, R5 or R10. We have parcels in this town that are not zoned.
Where's that?
So we have large tracts of land that are,
They're all zoned.
they're all zoned?
I mean, they're all zoned.
Okay,
Everybody's zoned.
okay.
They might be.
Platted, I'm sorry, yes.
I don't want to throw fuel on this,
Yes.
but
Come on, Jeff.
my son's a naval helicopter pilot, and they do refer to them as aircraft, by the way. They're fixed-wing aircraft or
Yes,
rotor aircraft.
rotary aircraft.
Right?
Yep,
That's not the point.
right.
I talked to him at nauseam about this, and by the way, they only need 30 feet to land a helicopter, right? So he could land anywhere in Copper Canyon right now, including on top of your house.
And would
That's
you
how good
say
they are.
safely?
Yes. So-
That's up to the helicopter
But that's
pilot.
not the point. But I'm a little dismayed that I think there's a misunderstanding out there, and I wish Mitch was still here. It is not our intention to encourage helicopters coming into Copper Canyon. We're trying to build a wall around this. I don't want any helicopters coming in, frankly.
I don't
And that's
either.
the point of this exercise, and I don't, with all due respect, Mayor, I don't think we're there yet on the language, zoning. I mean, R2's, it can't, it's got to cover everything, because again, they only need 30 feet, right? So we're not there yet, but I want the public to understand, we don't want helicopters here. That's why we're going through this exercise. So we're not trying to encourage this, and I agree there's more work that needs to be done in terms of language and format, but we need some protection. We got to do something.
The way this stands right now, I firmly believe the guy that tried in Double Oaks would buy an R10 parcel here, and we would have a heliport.
He could do it today.
But my understanding is that the Double Oak person has the intention to fly every day.
No. He wanted to fly essentially 7 to 8 times because he wanted to take his helicopter to Oklahoma State University to see an Oklahoma State Cowboys game.
I just think that we're spending a lot of time on Double Oak, and this is Copper Canyon, and we need to, circle back to our town. And I think it's ironic that we're all going to Fairview, and I do have that on my phone. I can read all the Fairview ordinance because I did study that, also Willow Park. I think it's ironic about how well that's written, and our own attorney, Attorney Deborah Edmondson, probably was instrumental in that. We don't really ever put anything out, I don't believe, that she doesn't at least read. And so I think that us saying, oh, we want to do Fairview, but this is, absurd, is kind of not, it's counterintuitive, because I don't think Deborah would have ever said, y'all can put this before the council or the P&Z or the people without reading it. And so if we're all proud of the fact that, Deborah was on the Fairview.
Deborah, what was your comment?
I mean, I don't know, I'm just saying that you're our attorney, and I'm sure that you, at least did.
The
but-
question's been raised, Deborah. Did you write this?
Well, no, I did not write this.
Okay.
No, I did not write this. I did review it.
That's what I'm saying.
And, you know, what I was told was that, you know, we're gonna present it. It's not a final draft, and we're gonna take comments on it. And that's what my understanding is what we were doing tonight.
That's what we're doing. Because we need some kind of ordinance. We need something. And then whether it ends up, with this council ends up being no, an allowance, if it ends up being one, but the purpose of it is we have to have something in there, because I'm not so worried about the guy from Double Oak. He's not coming here, because he's already planted roots, you know, over there in Double Oak, and he's fighting a fight there on something different, right? And he's not done yet, because they don't have an ordinance. He today can do what he wants to do unrestricted. And he would probably end up in a lawsuit with the Double Oak. I can't speak, I'm not gonna speak for them, but I wanna protect this town, and I wanna protect our people from somebody coming in here with a ton of money and building their own little operation. And then, as you have said, well, he'll just pay the fines. If they have that, if they have that much money, they'll just pay the fines. And according to the FAA and according to the helicopters, they can land anywhere they want. This town will lose because we do not have an ordinance for it. We need to have an ordinance. We need to match Fairview's operation a little bit. We need to do things draw things from other towns, which is what I did in this ordinance. And yes, it has been reviewed by other people besides me. So I just want you to know, don't think this is a one-man show. Because it's not.
No, I understand. Jeff has indicated he provided
But I do say, calling people and telling people you can have 100 helicopters on this ordinance is a facetious argument and doesn't make any sense. And throwing a scare tactic out there that 2 helicopters are going to hit each other is a scare tactic also, because that's never going to happen, because I would never permit, or hopefully we would never permit multiple operations in one day.
Well, but if you issue a permit on January 2nd that can be used at any time, which is the way this is worded right now, how do you even know?
Because the well, we'll get into that discussion later on, and that's a question.
Can I ask you?
Yeah.
So is the best, I kind of want to understand, is the best thing now for us to move this forward so that we're not here all night to address some of the concerns that have been brought forth? Or do you want to hear from each one of us? What is it that you want to do, Mayor, in order to? So,
Yes, I would like to, I want input for the town council, input to Troy. We'll put all these inputs together, we'll adjust the language as appropriate and see what we can do. And then we'll keep this open discussion, just like the P&Z. We'll keep an open discussion for the next meeting, and then we'll fold that up, and then we'll figure out how we can write this ordinance. Whether it's gonna be, these people may say, we don't want an ordinance. I don't know. But we're gonna get something that they can, on the table for them to look at.
Okay.
But if we don't do something, we are highly exposed to what happened at Double Oak. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, that's the last one on public hearing process. Anyone else who hasn't signed a piece of paper wish to talk on the public hearing process? Okay. Let's go to the next item. I will keep the public hearing and discussion item open for the next meeting, and we won't close that.
Mayor, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Just a suggestion, maybe we have a workshop on this?
We could very
to
well
write
do
it
that.
as
Once we get a little
council?
more input, we could very
Yeah.
well have a workshop on it.
Yeah, just to wordsmith it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Next, we'll talk about, the next discussion item only, of course, is the ethics ordinance, which is presented. The ethics ordinance was presented by Councilmember Newton, and I'll let her open the discussion on that. Oh, wait, is there any public input relative to, I don't have any other sheets, relative to the ethics ordinance that's been presented? Oh, yeah, that's right, we're not in that. You were good.
Okay. So tonight's item is about reaffirming our commitment to transparent, ethical governance in a way that is clear, consistent, and accessible to the public. This ordinance does not introduce new powers or create new restrictions beyond what state law already requires. What it does is put expectations, definitions, and procedures in one clear place so residents, staff, and council members are all operating from the same standard. The policy statement is clear. The purpose is to ensure council members and officers remain independent, impartial, and accountable only to the people of this town, and that public office is never used for personal gain. From the residents' perspective, this document answers the very basic but important questions. What happens if there's a conflict of interest? Are gifts allowed? When must someone step aside from a vote? And when that happens, and what happens if standards aren't met? My goal in bringing this forward is not to debate ethics in the abstract, but to ensure that residents have the confidence that decisions are being made fairly, transparently, and with predictable process. That clarity protects the public, the town, and every member of this council.
Okay, very good. Anyone else have any discussion on the ethics ordinance?
Can I make a comment?
Please.
So, excuse me, I first brought this up at the November meeting after I attended the Texas Municipal League Conference in October, that we really were in dire need of this. And right after that, Ted provided me with the ordinance, since I didn't have a copy of it. And I went to a training on the ethics policy and what it needed to include and what it shouldn't include. And as I have been just researching and reading through this and comparing it to what the city attorney that taught the class, part of what I am finding is it's really, really wordy, what we currently had that got passed and then got revoked. But it's missing a lot of the requirements that we were taught in that class. Things like requirement of ethics training for all of the council members, all of the commission members, the Board of Adjustment members. Things like creating an ethics review commission, which is going to be receiving any ethic complaint. How does somebody complain? You know, is there a form? Is there something on the website? What's the hearing process, the timelines, due process? How are we going to handle evidence so that there's a chain of custody? And last but not least, what's the role of legal counsel? City attorney versus independent outside attorney. This is a good start, but this talks more about what somebody can do. And a lot of times, if you just state, this is one of the points that he kept saying over and over, if you state very succinctly what you cannot do, then there's not the holes that people can find their way in. So the city attorney that was teaching this particular class, their policy statement is 3 pages. 3 pages, not ours. What we passed back in 21 is 8 pages. But it really doesn't solve the problem. There is nothing in here, for example, on, you know, how do you even report it? There's, you know, who are you gonna report it to? So we need to focus on those things. We need to have a clear definition as to who this applies to, because it talks a lot about elected leaders, but the reality is this needs to apply to the members of the P&Z, the Board of Adjustments. Employees are covered by the employee handbook. I'm assuming there's something in there in the employee handbook.
There is a definition of officer, which or public official, and that includes town council, any appointed member of the P&Z Board of Adjustment or other office.
Yeah, but it needs a little bit more meat.
Sure,
You know,
absolutely.
at some point, we might have the CCPD. I mean, there's a lot of things as we grow. We need to make it to where it grows with us and not against us, so that it can expand and it can grow as the town grows, because we are going to grow. So,
As you can see, we obviously have a lot that we can do with it. That's why this is the discussion. And so what we need to do is open it up to where we have this as the discussion and that the residents as well can offer their input as well as the council. And what we're doing right now is taking the context of what this is, knowing that what the main thing is that this is also an opportunity for the update for the state law that needs to be brought in, that we're in compliance with state law, so that that is also what's brought in with ethics, so that we're in compliance as we are doing with the ordinance, as we're doing with all of the subdivision and all the other things that we're doing, and making sure that we have the definitions and standards to make sure that we're interpreting conduct and conflicts, and all things are being aligned together. Like what you said, we want to make sure that we're not having a wordy document that is left open to holes and interpretation. We want to make sure that it is not our interpretations, our words, our things, but that we're doing things that are concrete and that they're lining up with state law, and not having our definition of critical terms and code text and different, we can look at. Again, we don't want to do things that are Argyle or that are Little Elm or whatever, but we can look at some of the other towns and what they're doing. There are other towns that are outsourcing, that are using other sources. But this is the open time to be able to look at what state law is now doing from the time that was happening before. State law does not enforce some of the things that we are doing as ethics, but cities must require compliance and make sure that these filings are public, so that we're being transparent.
Very good. So I appreciate it. So if you come up with any language, and the whole thing is about this is the core document we're going to start with. This passed before certain people in this room. I voted for it when I was on the council and stuff, then we got it on there, and then it was removed. Other people in this room voted for it too, so when they were on the council. So any language you want to add or anything like that, that's the whole part of this. This is a discussion, as an initial shot across the bow, and then but we do need to get the ethics ordinance back in our manuals, back in our ordinances, and give Yvonne one more thing to look at and stuff. Okay. I did notice there's a couple things that I would change in here. We're going to, once again, replace that. I'll put those inputs in. We'll all funnel them through Troy. Jeff, you have a comment?
Just tagging on to my earlier comment about the aviation ordinance, I think we need to rethink our process on how we write these up. And I don't know what the answer is, but maybe it is a workshop with all of us, instead of one person trying to spearhead it, and then you're getting a lot of input in, and then we're premature with the public, create a little firestorm out there because it's not all baked.
Well,
I think we need to rethink kind of how we attack these different Can I finish, please?
Go ahead.
Yeah. On how we actually write these. I think it needs to be, I hate to say it, more workshops.
Well, those have to be public also. I mean, it's not like we're all just
Right.
meeting, it's got to be town.
Right, but try to tackle it all at once instead of ping-ponging, back and forth for because I look at, like, when we tried to do ordinance 10.
Yep.
Look how long that took. I mean, we were just bouncing all over the place on that thing. I don't know what the answer is. I'm not.
Yeah, the issue becomes, and correct me if I'm wrong, town lawyer, that we have to discuss this stuff in public. That's the problem. We can't. That's a workshop, and we're going to go, and we can do that, and we absolutely will. So
Your workshop is going to be open to the public, okay?
Yep.
And, and you're obviously free to take comments at that or not take comments from
Absolutely.
the public.
Yep.
So
we'll do that, and we're going to get but we needed to write a document to get started, both on the aviation ordinance for the exposure to town, in my view, which we see our neighbors happening, and now with our ethics, we need to get that. And so this is just a working document to start off with.
So
Yeah.
you don't have to think of it like spearheading. What you have to think of it like is that somebody decided that they saw something that needed to be introduced, and they're the only person that that decided to bring it to the mayor or to bring it to Troy, the town administrator, as the idea. And they are not doing anything but really bringing it to the person because they saw a need for it to come to before the town. And Troy and I have only been talking as far as what is the legal requirement before the state or before the town as far as what has to be done for the public and for the residents, because things do have to be transparently done publicly. And every idea is important, from the resident to the council, and everything has to be done publicly. So workshops or however it needs to be done, Troy and I have been talking about what has to be done publicly and what has to be done so that everything is done, so every idea and everything is done in a transparent and legal and appropriate way. So that is what this is. Your idea, Victoria's idea, the residents' ideas, and will you back me up on that, that has been my heart in all of this, that this is not mine. This has nothing to do with me. It was just simply that it was requested of me by someone to bring this before council.
Right.
Actually, Councilmember Hubbard did bring this up in November.
You did bring that up, but it was.
After she went to her TML class and talked quite a bit about it. This document was written 5 years ago or whatever. It was written a lot because I was involved in, I came to all the meetings at that point. A lot of the stuff in here was written in a situation, in my opinion, of retaliation. And so there's a lot of stuff in here that's probably does not need to be in there. And I think that Victoria's comments about a 3-page code of ethics, that's what Bartonville has, other towns. I mean, do we really need to talk about all the many? And this is the one that really gets me, and I have to bring it up. No one can engage in any conduct damaging to the town. Well, are we gonna have like a morality committee, or what's the deal with that? Because I think that we're getting way overboard. I think that we put somebody, we all took the TML code of ethics. We all took that. We had to take that training before we sat on the council. Everybody else does as well. I understand that, we're going back, we need to have a code of ethics, but we can get wrapped around and telling everybody what they need to do all day long. I think it needs to be short, it needs to be readable, it needs to be what you said. I mean, you and I had a conversation about it when you got home from your conference. I think that we can just beat this horse all day long, and then you're never gonna have anybody run because you're talking about a lot of stuff that's outrageous in my opinion. So let's tighten it up. If we need to have a council or workshop meeting, that's fine, but we don't need to have somebody over here telling me or somebody else that so-and-so is damaging the town, because that's all speculation. We've got 6 people up here and we all have different personalities and religions and things that we believe in. Let's tighten it up. Let's not get lost in, what we're gonna make somebody do just to sit up here.
Okay, well, good. We'll look forward to the input you have on that, and we'll work this document back and forth or whatever, or move it around. But this was written by the previous town lawyer, and that's why it was voted on by the council and stuff.
There
So-
also, and we're not gonna leave it at this.
Okay.
There also was a thing that says something about how no one, including the mayor, was going to be able to talk to anyone unless, and that is not something that is gonna be left like that. So this document was not left that way. That is not something that we want. We're not gonna have something that is gonna be a Gestapo. That is not the purpose of this document. This is not about us. This is bigger than us. This is for the purpose of making sure that beyond when we're not here, that it is for the purpose of protecting. This was not even something that I was asked to bring this on the agenda. And yes, you are the person that talked about it before, but I was specifically asked, and I'm not going to be thrown under the bus like that. And I'm saying that this is something that is bigger than all of us, and sometimes that is the way that it is. so.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, and we don't want to throw you under the bus at all, or anything like that, and I don't think that was the intent of this, but it was a document we could work with to start with. So, we'll look for your input, Victoria, and then go from there, just like we'll look for the input on the aviation ordinance. Any other comments on the discussion items?
Yeah, Mayor, quick
Please.
just a time check-in. It's about 9 o'clock. We've got the fire consideration or just a review on the 21 proposed fire code, and then we have 2 action items. So I didn't know if we wanted to,
We'll skip the fire code thing we'll put that off till next month.
okay, for
And
the,
stuff,
yeah.
there's not no real, but let's move on to action and discussion items. And the first item for consideration on action and discussion items is discuss, consider, take action regarding the awarding of 2026 annual contract for miscellaneous paving, repair, and drainage to Cracks Paving LLC, formerly SPI Asphalt LLC, and approving the 2026 annual contract for miscellaneous pavement, repair, and drainage improvements between the town of Copper Canyon and Cracks Paving LLC. So SPI Asphalt is the company that we had previously last year used. And Troy, you have any comments for that?
Yeah, so SPI we used over the past 2 years because we initially signed 1-year contracts with a 1-year renewal. And so it was time to put it out to bid. And so our town engineers and myself, we worked on, what that bid would include. And so you guys see that in your packet. We had, based on, their letter, I think it summarizes, we had 3 proposals submitted. And Crack Paving kind of came in at that low bid. And we really, when you look at this proposal, we couldn't really give a specific scenario on, go fix this street. So they may fix potholes for us. They may fix some minor cracking, or, excuse me, like they did on Copper Canyon Road, they took out sections of the road. And so they give us lump sums, and then based on those lump sums is how we calculated the results of the bid packages. And Crack Paving came in. We feel they'll do a good job for us. And they are formerly the SPI that had done previous work for us as well. Just note that. But that's it.
Does anyone else have, go ahead, Jeff, you
Yeah,
have a
just-
discussion on the item?
Just as a steward of our finances, when we say $385,945, right? They're just, it's bill as they submit invoices, right?
Correct.
And
So-
then what happens if it goes above 385?
So they have to do change orders. So in other words, we're going to go out and do a road assessment.
But we're
Or-
approving up to this.
Correct. So they're not going to exceed that. On top of, they will bring us change orders for everything that they do.
But what would the process be, though, if there was something large that went past this 385?
We'd have to have council for approval to do
Okay,
that.
that's what I was.
So, and we have a roads maintenance funds that could
Okay.
support that.
All right. So not to exceed is not to exceed.
Correct.
Without council approval.
Correct.
Okay. And they may not,
And-
they may use
Yeah.
$200,000,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Okay.
So, in all their contracts that they have, we usually bring those forward as change orders. Because we're making change orders to initial bid, and because now we know specifically what work needs to be done, and they'll create those and they'll bring to council for approval.
Any other discussion from the council members? And then I just note that our engineering firm, TNP, has a recommendation for awarding the contract to them, so.
And TNP has no other affiliation with Cracks Concrete? I mean,
Correct.
So they're 2 separate entities?
two separate
Correct,
companies.
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, and with that, I will take a consideration for a motion to take action by awarding the contract, 2026 annual contract for miscellaneous pavement repair and drainage to Cracks Paving LLC, formerly SPI, I'll read it one more time, LLC, and approving the 2026 annual contract for miscellaneous pavement and repair and drainage improvements between the town of Copper Canyon and Cracks Paving LLC. Take a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion that we award the 2026 annual contract for miscellaneous pavements, repair and drainage to Cracks Paving LLC.
Thank you. A motion made by Councilmember Dahl. Second? for that approval?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilmember Hubbard. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All against, say nay. That contract is awarded by unanimous decision. Second item for discussion action, discussion items, discuss, consider, take action regarding the Awnee Ranch Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions, i.e. CCRs for Awnee Ranch. We have our developer here with us tonight. Apologize for the late night for you. Mr. Siciliano, if you would please, if you have anything to say. Your 3 minutes starts now, just kidding.
I hope it doesn't take that long. I had a question for council. You know how you can tell when someone's a pilot? They'll tell you.
Yeah, that's right.
You don't have to wait. They'll tell you. I'm just here to answer questions. We submitted our CCRs. They're very thorough. They're patterned after Williams Ranch. We've been using them for a couple years now. They're patterned after Vickery from Williams Ranch. We incorporated all the staff's comments. So Mandy Lindsay is here, who administers our HOA. She's very versatile on why we have what's in here. So we were just here to answer questions.
I'll start off. I want to thank you for incorporating our comments to you on these CCRs, and that's very nice of you to do that, even though maybe our ordinances didn't make you do it, but you did it for us, and we appreciate that.
Yep. Mayor and council, I just want to point out a couple things. David and his team did work very hard on this document, and it took several months to get it done. I know there's been some concerns around the gas well pad site that is on that development location. So if you look at page 8, it talks a little bit about on section 2.13, owner acknowledgement, and that's if somebody builds a house 1,000 feet near that site, that they have to do an acknowledgement. That acknowledgement will be obtained during the building permit process. David and I had a lot of discussions about putting this in here, and it finally got in here, so we were excited to see that. So again, that happens during the permitting process because we don't know who the landowners will be at this time. So he had put that in the
Well,
CCR for us.
it's in several places, Troy, because it's also in the deed.
Right.
So when it's conveyed, it's actually in their deed. I mean, it's going to be hard for them not to know there's not a gas well there.
Yeah. And then it's also referenced on page 12. It talks about the gas well site and the owners and that type of thing. The other thing that we'd asked David to make sure that was in this is how the drainage and retention and detention ponds will be addressed. So that's all through the document. If you look on page 14, section 1.24, it talks about drainage, who's going to maintain that, who's going to clean out the sediment, those type of things as well. So I'm just going to highlight just a few sections in here that they put in to kind of cover some of those things. There was, and David, I wanted to ask you about this on page 25, section 3.3, when it talks about walls, fencing, and hedges. Perimeter fencing, it talks about lot 23X, and the lots along Copper Canyon Road will be fenced. And so my question, and I know the well site, has some barbed wire fencing around it now, and there was a lot of discussion about should it be around the whole entire site or if it would be three-sided. My understanding is y'all were going to only do 3 sides of board-on-board fence versus all 4 sides. So I just wanted clarification on that after I was reading this.
The well is not on Awnee Ranch's property. We took the property under Siciliano Developments to keep the well separate, to keep it out of the subdivision. So we will put a fence around the outside of the barbed wire fence that's currently on the gas well, on 3 sides. To the south side is us and Lantana. There's no homeowners to screen. So that's why we have a board-on-board, 8-foot fence on 3 sides.
Right.
That was the reasoning.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the screening aspect of it.
So we're putting a fence on Awnee Ranch's property, which borders that. We're not
Right.
putting anything on the gas well property.
Okay, no, completely understand that. I mean,
Okay,
there's barbed wire
sorry.
fence. I guess I'm more concerned with
Yeah.
when you have a 3-sided board-on-board fence and you have an open backside, from a safety perspective, could kids just jump over the barbed wire fence and be kids and get onto the site, or would it be better to try to protect the whole site with a board-on-board, 8-foot fence?
Well, this isn't in Awnee Ranch.
Okay,
The south side is not in Awnee Ranch.
Gotcha.
So it's not part of the
Right.
development.
okay, just want to
And now,
clarify.
Lantana's south of us, and there's an access road, Troy.
No, I'm fully
And we
aware. I
can't
drive
block
that
the
frequently.
access road. There has to be a gate to go into the gas well.
And there
So-
is.
And there is. So that was the reasoning. That's what we did, what we did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any council members have any questions for Mr. Siciliano?
And Mayor, just one more thing.
Oh,
The other
sorry,
thing,
Troy.
just to point out, the private road situation, and it clearly states in the CCRs, and Dave did a good job with this, is the private streets would be maintained through the HOA as well.
And,
all I-
and not to address council, but there was a comment here about our CCRs. And as you know, that's a private document between homeowners and the HOA. Where the city steps in is where you want it to be properly maintained so the maintenance doesn't come back to the city. So any other comments about the CCRs are really kind of moot for people that are bringing them up because they're a private document. I'm just pointing that out.
Can you explain what you mean by
Moot,
that?
M-O-O-T. It has no meaning. If someone wants to come in and comment about my CCRs, they're a private document. And we had people talking about what's in my CCRs. So I'm saying they have no standing for a private document. The town has some standing to make sure that they're properly maintained and the assessment mechanism is there for proper maintenance. But apart from that, what we put in for satellite dishes and fences and all that is a private document between the HOA and the homeowners.
Then why do we have to approve it then?
You mainly look at, in the past, what the past council did, and they looked at the assessment methodology, and they look at what had to be maintained and what might come back to the town to maintain if it wasn't properly done. So Troy and council looked through that, and I'm sure that was their emphasis. We put in this whole 13-part on the drainage because Troy's very concerned about those retention ponds being properly maintained. So what if the homeowners association fails or doesn't maintain them? The town has the right to come in, not the obligation, but the right to come in and fix it if they want to and bill the homeowners. And that's kind of where the town's role is, to make sure you're protected and to make sure it's properly maintained. But when you get into things where what the homeowner has to do with their fence and other things, the town has no liability there, and it's a private document. And
You're talking about like color of fence or what materials,
all those things.
kind of things.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Unimportant to us.
Absolutely.
More important than making sure our people are safe and also who's going to pay for repairs should they be needed.
Well, and it's happened, Jeff. I mean, in
Yeah.
Frisco, they had HOAs fail, and they went to the town and said, please fix the road, because the HOA didn't have money, and so you want to protect yourself in that case. And I have Mandy here if you wanted to get anything technical, but that's why she was here, if you wanted to get into the administration or any of that. But basically, council, it's a private document. Council's
Sure.
looking out to protect the town, yeah.
But there are sections that overlap with our ordinances. For example, accessory buildings.
We have to comply with town ordinances.
Right, I understand.
Absolutely.
Right, but there is some crossover, so I think it makes sense the council does review these and make sure that they're synced.
Absolutely.
And in the case,
Yeah.
and in the case of a CCR that, and it's not the case here, I didn't see anything that jumped out at me, but if there was a CCR approved that we didn't catch something and was inconsistent with our ordinances, do our ordinances supersede?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, we're a private.
yes, they do.
We're just a private
Understand.
agreement.
Understand.
Yeah.
All right, well, very good. Any other questions for anybody? Chase, nothing?
The original property was 55 acres, 55 and some decimal. So we kept a little over 5 in Siciliano Developments for the well. And by the way, I may reach out to you on that well. I had a question or two, and I understand you have some expertise there. I might reach out. But so we kept the well separate. So there's a private entrance that comes off Copper Canyon Road that goes down the south part of a lot that goes into the well. We own that. Yeah.
I guess I was just confused because it's part of the plat, it's a platted lot.
It's a separate lot in the plat. It's not part of the Ani Ranch, yes.
So the plat, it's part of the plat, but it's not part of this document.
Yes. It may be incorporated later. We hope to shut down that well and make 2 more lots there. And we do that, we'll come back to the town and see if we can plat that. And we have the ability to bring it into the HOA if we do that. But it's not in the HOA now, no.
I would ask for your comment about requesting any expertise that Chase may have as a council member. If you would, make sure you go through Troy and he arranges that or whatever, not privately, because he ends up having to vote on things, you know,
sure.
and stuff. So
Sure.
make sure when you talk to Troy.
Well, we're trying to get rid of that well. We're happy to go through
Sure.
Troy however you want us to do it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
All right, with that being said, any last comments from anybody on the CCRs? Hearing none, I will take a motion to consider approving the Awney Ranch Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions for Awney Ranch. Do I have a motion for accepting those CCRs?
I move that we approve the Awney Ranch
Motion-
CCRs.
Motion by Councilmember Hubbard, any second? Second by Councilmember Dahl. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All against, say nay. And those CCRs are approved for Awney Ranch Declaration Covenants and Conditions and Restrictions. Unanimous vote. Go to the next item then, please. Discussion and future agenda items. Any council member may request an item to be placed on subsequent agenda items. Does any council member have an item that likes to be brought up for the next council meeting?
We should roll over fire code.
We will. Yeah. So hearing none, I will take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion by Councilmember Libbert, and a second? Second by Councilmember Hubbard. The meeting is adjourned at 9:12.
We didn't vote on it. But we are.
Oh, we didn't vote on it.
It's okay.
Take a vote to vote on
Yep.
the Jim.
You mentioned